Yields back. Florida's recognized.
The problem with my colleague's debate is after these people are apprehended, they are paroled into the country. And so, yes, indeed, it's 5,000 people that we would allow to be apprehended, paroled throughout the United States. And that's where you are seeing this wave of migrant crime. That's where you are seeing jurisdictions like New York City think about their sanctuary status. I mean, I recall vividly a few things. I recall at the presidential debate when the question was asked, who would provide free health care to illegal aliens coming into the country? We all saw President Biden raise his hand. He was a candidate then, but that is a pull factor. When you tell desperate people that you're going to give them benefits and you're going to give them cash and you're going to give them shelter and you're going to give them food, I don't particularly blame the illegal aliens who are crossing the border to get those things. I blame the choices we've made in government to allow it. And the underlying legislation here at least says, I don't know if you're arrested for robbery, that there is detention and then there is deportation, that we don't have to invite all of the third world's prisons across our border into our nation and then allow the people in this country to be victims of that crime that occurs. I also vividly remember Secretary Mayorkas sitting right here in this committee room acknowledging that these people who are being paroled out into the country would indeed commit crimes. And the victims of those crimes have to be the collateral damage so that the Biden administration can allow the border to go unchecked, to go uncontrolled. And as we now try to create some deterrent to that illegal entry, it's interesting to hear my Democrat colleagues talk about just the need for more resources. Oh, if we just gave the Biden administration and Mr. Mayorkas more money, that would solve this problem. They are lawless in their use of the money they already have. They are taking what has already been authorized and appropriated it, and they have used it to disperse illegal aliens into these sanctuary jurisdictions all over the nation. And so giving them more money is sort of like saying if you have a busted fire hydrant, you can solve the problem with buckets. You indeed cannot. You have to shut off the flow. You have to shut off the flow of the people into this country. And this legislation has the very humble objective of ensuring that people who commit robbery do not stay here to do additional grave harm to our fellow Americans. I'll yield my remaining time to the gentleman from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to actually submit a couple of articles. One is called Chicago City Council Votes Against Measure to Ask Voters About Sanctuary City Status. Now, why is that important?
Without objection.
Because, thank you. It's because what was Chicago's concern? What is their current mayor's concern? At issue is how to continue financing shelter and other essentials for more than 20,000 migrants that have arrived in the city in the last 14 months. That's illegal migrants. I think it's absolute, quote, here's a quote here. I think it's absolutely imperative we give voters the opportunity to have their view on this subject heard, especially when we're talking about spending $255 million this year alone to take care of 20,000 migrants, Lopez said. So it's not really working out real well for Chicago. In New York City, you got Mayor Adams, who's also beefed about the sanctuary city policy. But why is this? Is it just because of sanctuary city? No, it's not about the sanctuary city. And he goes through and he clarifies that. This is what it's about. It's about all of the illegal aliens who have come to New York City, and that they're trying to deal with that. So let's just read a little bit from this article. This is a New York City article, Mr. Chairman, from ABC News. I'd like to admit
Without objection.
Thank you. After a series of, quote, well-publicized crimes allegedly committed by migrants, Mayor Eric Adams appeared to support a modification of laws that make New York a sanctuary city. He said on Tuesday that migrants who commit serious crimes should be deported, and the city should be able to communicate with federal ICE agents. Quote, we should not be allowing people who are repeatedly committing crimes to remain here, and we cannot collaborate with ICE in the process, close quote. Another quote, if you commit a felony, a violent act, we should be able to turn you over to ICE and have you deported, close quote. That's not really working out real well for New York City and Chicago, is it? You got people committing serious crimes, and now we have people kind of implying robbery ain't that serious. Yeah. The implication of what you're saying is robbery's not that serious. We don't think you should be detained. We don't think you should be prosecuted in this sense. In fact, we want to do something that is tantamount. It is tacitly like, it is It is a metaphor. It is similar. It is almost exactly like the cashless bail system, which is not working out real well for New York and Chicago. That I'll yield back to the gentleman from Florida.
Virginia is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield my time to the gentleman from California, Mr. McClintock.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Mr. Chairman, I think Americans need to wake up. The ranking member on the Immigration Subcommittee just told us this is all working out just fine. It's all working out just fine. I wonder how many Americans actually share this belief. I think perhaps we should put that to a vote. And fortunately, we will have that opportunity in a few months. Now, we were just told by the Democrats that, well, Donald Trump didn't reduce illegal immigration, only the options available to immigrants. Well, this is absolutely absurd. In fact, the Immigration Subcommittee was going to hold a hearing tomorrow in which we'll receive testimony from officials who've served both the Trump and Biden administrations about the explosion of illegal immigrants allowed into our country and what Biden did to produce this crisis. Donald Trump enforced our immigration laws. Though those laws require asylum claims to be vetted, under Biden, very few actually have credible fear interviews. Instead, they're simply admitted into the country. These laws require those who pass the credible fear test to be detained. Trump detained them or required them to wait in Mexico or a safe third country. Biden is ignoring that law and is releasing them into the country. Trump did everything he could to enforce our immigration laws. Biden has done everything he can not to enforce them. And without enforcement, we have no immigration laws. Without immigration laws, we have no borders. And without borders, we cease to be a country. And that is what is happening. And it's going to continue to happen as long as this administration remains in office. We're now talking about an illegal population, people who have no legal right to be here, deliberately released into our country in just 3 years. And between releases and gotaways, that population is now exceeding the size of the entire state of Missouri, our 18th largest state with 8 congressional districts. That's what's happened to our country in 3 years. An entire state of Missouri has been added to our population. But let's not lose sight of what this bill says. It says if you're here illegally, the law already requires you to be detained. The Democrats simply refuse to enforce that law. And this bill says if you're arrested for a robbery and here illegally, you really need to be detained. Let me repeat, the law already requires every illegal immigrant to be detained. This simply says if you're a robbery suspect, you're required to be detained. We have provisions of law right now, and they've had it for decades, that require mandatory detention for aliens accused of crimes such as those involving moral turpitude, for committing drug offenses. This bill simply adds robbery to these provisions. Now, the Democrats oppose this measure. I think that speaks for itself. They believe that our immigration laws should not be enforced, and those who are here illegally and who are arrested for robbery, they should still be on our streets. And we're watching across the country the effect of these policies, and I think the American people are finally getting enough of it and are starting to wake up to the danger that has been created. And I thank the gentleman for yielding and yield back.
Gentleman from Virginia yields back.